As we've been exploring the last few weeks, it's holiday season, and once again, we're going to turn our attention to what we might be able to create to give away as gifts during this holiday season. And today, we're going to focus on what do you give to somebody who perhaps has everything but no room for anything. This week on Mixed Media Masters. Hello, makers, and welcome to the studio. Good to have you here. By the way, if this is the kind of thing you like, making abstract art and kind of learning all sorts of fun tips and tricks, this is the channel you want to be able to subscribe to. So yeah, take a moment, hit that. And by the way, anytime you hit that like button on the videos, it really helps us out, and we're thankful for that. Now, as promised, we're talking about holiday gifts, and once again, I want to be able to create something that's fairly easy for us to set up and make. And these are actually very easy. We're going to be creating small art. Now, if you have lived in a small apartment, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes someone gifting you a large painting may seem like a nice thing, but there's no place to put it. Heck, you don't have room for the stuff you already have. And so we're going to create really small art, the kind of art that will fit into a 2-inch by 3-inch frame. How about that? And we're going to create some abstracts. I'm going to show you 3 different ways that we can create abstracts using 3 different media, because this is about mixed media after all. And we're going to talk about how we can just let our imagination run wild and create some things that are kind of fun and stuff that would really create a spot of color in someone's bathroom or some small space in a rather crowded apartment or house even. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to do that. Now, first thing I did just to prep things a little bit is I have pulled together some pieces of paper that I can work on. Now, this is a heavy-duty watercolor paper. This is my go-to Strathmore. And I've created a few extra pieces just in case I don't really like what I'm coming up with and I want to create something else. And I also have a series of these frames I have purchased. And by the way, I'll leave links for you at the bottom in the description. But I have some that are black and some that are in white, depending on my mood, and there's so many options here. And again, I'll show you can actually create frames that allow these to be turned into a holiday ornament. So if you have somebody who is hanging stuff around the house and they want to be able to hang it as an ornament, you can do that as well. So a lot of cool things that we can do. But let's focus on the concept of the artwork. First of all, I'm going to take one of our pieces of paper. It's really tiny, Okay, so one of the things I'm considering here, since I want to use watercolors for this first piece, is where I want to mask the edges. And I can do that very easily with a roll of masking tape. And what I might do is just to create some sort of a clear, clean demarcation between, where the artwork begins and ends. I'm going to try to be just kind of equidistant. I don't know, about 3/8 of an inch maybe on there. And maybe about 1 centimeter. Yeah, we'll get that edge in there. A similar edge down here. And by the way, don't sweat this if it's not perfect. A lot of times, depending what frame you're using, is that white edge might end up being obscured anyway. It's going to be covered by the inside of the frame. Now I'm going to be using a water pen, a water brush here. It's really just a paintbrush that's built into the end here. You can buy them in different shapes, and it's a reservoir filled with water. And it just makes it easy when we're working with watercolors to just have water that we can add to something to blend it without having to constantly be dipping into a cup of some sort. And I'm going to come in here and, well, by the way, let me show you off. I'm working with the my watercolor set here. And these are actually really a lot of fun. There are 42 colors in here. This palette extends out here. And I'll put a link in the description below if you're not familiar with this. They're really affordable, and they're great when you're traveling and want to bring some art with you. I'm thinking I'm going to kind of start over here, and I'm going to use my paintbrush to create a kind of almost an orb for an ornament. I'm thinking maybe a red color here. We'll see where it takes to. And I like this red here. I'm going to pick some of that with my brush. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put it in this area. Now again, if I want to, I can just squeeze my brush a little bit, get some more water. I want more of a feathered edge here. Kind of staying within the circular area. And by the way, it's all gonna change probably when we start adding on the colors. But kind of start with that as my go-to. I'm gonna clean off my brush in my bucket of water here. Make it easier. And let's get some green, since this is kind of the holiday season, and traditionally, at least where I grew up, by the end of the winter, all that was left was basically evergreens and poisonous berries, which were red. So that was kind of why a lot of the greens and reds happened. It was the only thing that we didn't eat during the rest of the year. Let's get some green in here. And again, let me just get a little bit of kind of fun there. Put a little spot down here. And I'm going to go with a little darker on the green, kind of more of a, I don't know, is that a forest green? Like that? Evergreen, green, green. And get in here and do some of that. And at some point, the red and the green is probably going to come together because we want to fill in that white space. So let me just kind of broach it right like this. And we're just going to let those kind of play together. We'll see what happens. It looks a little muddy sometimes. Hopefully we can do this. I'll actually go back to my brighter green here. And the thing that's fun about working with watercolors is sometimes you don't know what it's going to look like until it's all done doing what it's going to do. And again, if I want to add a little bit more water to this whole process, I can also get the colors to swim with one another. So, all right, we'll see what happens with that. We'll give that an opportunity to dry. Oftentimes when these dry, they look very different than what we're seeing right here. But I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry now. I want to hit it with a hairdryer, I'm just saying. And let's take a look at what we come up with and how we might drop it into a frame. Okay, so the art has had a little bit of time to dry. And let's get the tape off the edge here. There we go. There's my clean lines. Looks pretty good. And again, you know, feel free to experiment. You have lots and lots of little pieces of paper that you can create. These are not huge. And if something doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I've done a few variations on a theme. Yeah, let's pull a few other things in here. And to be honest, I like this one. This one turned out a lot closer to what I had up here. And so an opportunity for me to frame it up. I think I'm going to use one of my white frames here. And again, these are a 2" by 3" frame. And I'm going to just take this guy and pop it in there like that. I'm thinking this will be a vertical piece of art. But again, it's entirely up to us. And the beautiful thing about abstract is, who knows, maybe it's horizontal. It could be either. Whatever makes you happy. That way, up and down, upside down. Well, we can do that. But again, a little piece of art. And of course you can decorate this up a little further with pencils and crayons and pens, anything you want. Really go with the whole mixed media approach. But there we go. So that's something that we can do. Let's try one of the other ones here in a black frame, just for contrast, just to see how it turns out. And yeah, again, you can see a little bit of the white border around there. That kind of gives it a little bit more dimension, that's all. So anyway, small things with watercolor. Easy to do. You can make a whole bunch of them and then take it from there. So next, let's go in and one of my favorite mediums, let's work with cut paper collage. Now, if you follow this channel at all, you'll know that I'm a big fan of cut paper collage, and we do a fair amount of work on that. In this case, it's going to be relatively simple because the amount of room we need to cover with our genius, with our brilliance, is going to be relatively small. And I'm working with some pieces that I have from my cut paper bin. So I have a milk crate stash that I dump everything I've already worked on, not brand new pieces of paper, but certainly good colors to work with. And I'm going to get something super bright in here. And I think one of the things I'll do here is let's get kind of a red here. I have an idea. That doesn't mean it's going to turn into what I'm working on here, but let's just come in here. I'm going to create kind of an organic shape, and I might need to resize it to fit my artwork here. There we go. Yeah, that's going to be already just too ginormous. So let's get this trimmed down, maybe square it up a little bit. How about that? That. All right, so that kind of works as a foundation. And then let's say we want to be able to do some kind of things on top of this red. This blue color here I think will work really well. Let me just get a small piece to, oh yeah, that pops so nice. You see how that works? So let's see what happens if we just kind of create some pieces like this that just kind of sit there. I'm going to shorten that up a little bit. But I can already see something starting to emerge from the mark there. That's kind of fun. You know what? I'm going to put a little bit of yellow in there as well, since I have this little yellow, same kind of a piece with this point at the end. Let's go the same direction with the points. Kind of fun. And what else would go in here really well? I don't think that orange is going to pop as well as I want it to, but you know what? I've got a purple here. Eh, why not? Doesn't have to be crazy complicated. There we go. No, it's a little bit too big still. Again, when you're working on such a small piece of paper, it's hard to gauge it sometimes as to exactly how small your pieces should be. But there we go. So I'm going to just create something, I don't know, not like that. And I'm also thinking that across the bottom, I'm going to go the other direction with kind of the movement here. And I'm thinking of just have some horizontal line sort of shapes. I'm going to make it a little bit wavy. There we go. Let me trim that down. I put something in here like that. I don't know, could be interesting. Let me counter that with some of this green / teal. Okay, get some pieces to work with. Maybe I'll offset that a little bit there. Move that up. And one of the things I love about working with cut paper is, you know, if you change your mind, you can move things around. Harder to do when you're working with something like paint, obviously. Paint has a tendency to be a little bit more, well, hey, now that I'm here, I'm going to stay here. But we can also say, you know what, that piece just isn't working. Let's go and find something else that will work. I kind of like the gray and the teal down here. The shapes, I think, work really well together. You know what, I'm going to make the red, this red blob, a little bit smaller. I feel like it's still just kind of encroaching upon everything else. So let me just kind of trim that down. Make this more doable. There we go. Yeah, that just feels a lot more comfortable to me. And of course I'm going to shorten these guys a little bit just to make that work. Good. All right, you know what? But why the heck not? Why the heck not? You know what? One more thing, just because I can. And by the way, test it. I'm going to dry fit this all. It may not work, but I'm thinking if I put a little spot of orange down there, kind of running at the bottom of those things, how might that look? I think my scissors feel almost too big for the job. Here we go. If I put this down here like that, we'll play around with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of paste up here. And let's get these little pieces. And I'm using my standard go-to Amazon Basics glue stick. Yeah, these are, we figured out once, I think 24 cents each, and they do a good job. And it's also, they have the purple color, which only stays purple while it's wet, so you can see when things are drying, and that makes it a little bit easier as well. Let me drop this little blob of orange down at the bottom here. Put it right about there. Good. And I'm going to put the teal here. And let's bring that. Actually, no. Bring it like that. Do the same thing with the yellow. Make sure we kind of gluing on the reverse side of how I laid it out, but sometimes that's just the way it goes. You can change your mind. And I'm going to put the purple, just to be contrary, angling the other direction down here like this. All right. Abstract. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. And now let me get the rest of this glued up. Usually I'd use a gluing sheet, but this is relatively small. And now I can put this up here where I want it, in the center of my paper. Give that a good firm press down so it stays put. And let me get the, I'll start from the bottom going up. So let's get this piece in here. Right, that. Let's get the teal, the dark teal. Does that make sense? Or is this peacock? I'm sure there are people who get the job of naming all the colors that they come up with. this right, that. Bring it a little bit. Make sure this. Whoop, looks like we don't have enough glue in this guy, so easily remedied. Yeah, and I like the fact that it's, you know, they're all squared up there. It's pretty good. You know what? This one's getting some edge creep here. A lot of times, you know, it depends on the time of year, it depends on the humidity in the air. All sorts of things can get in the way of your glue drying as quickly as you want it to. But I think that looks pretty good. Now again, is there a right way to do this? There is not. But part of the fun is once you've gotten your piece done, you just drop it in the frame and see how it really looks when it's done. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. Again, what I'm looking for is something I can hang on a wall, or in this case, I have a little stand here, so I can put it on my desk and say, hey, that's a picture of my child as an abstract character. That could be a picture of my child as an abstract character. Anyway, cut paper, easy to do, and once again, I would create a lot of variations on a theme. There's no reason why you have to stop and say, this is the only thing I want. You can create a series if you want. And speaking of which, I want to do that next. I want to create a series that we can work with. We're going to use some acrylic paint just because we're mixing it up here on Mixed Media Masters, and we're going to create a bit of a triptych. So let's do that now. All right, so this time we're going to create a triptych, which is 3 parts. So we're going to grab 3 panels here. And what I'm thinking is I want to create something that looks almost like a single piece of art, and then when we put them in frames, they'll be in separate frames, and that's going to give an interesting dimensionality to the artwork. So I'm going to start by laying down a couple strips of my masking tape here, and I'm just going to tape across the backs. These will be the backs of my artwork at this point. Let's do that a few times just to hold these guys together. Make sure that they're where I want them to be. There we go. And again, one of the things I like about using the sensitive the sensitive masking tape is that it just makes it a lot easier for us to reposition if we need to. Okay, but the goal here is to get them kind of almost looking like a single piece of paper. And if it's not perfect, it does not matter. It does not matter. Now I'm going to be using some standard colors, and I have the tendency to gravitate towards the brights. So I've got some yellow, got some orange here, I've got a red, and then I've got kind of the lower end of the Roy G. Biv. I've got more of a bimini blue, a darker blue, and then kind of a foresty green to balance things off. And generally when I'm working with acrylics, I want to start with my brighter colors at the background if I can, and then kind of work my way toward the darker colors. But there's no right way to do this. So let me get some of these into my palette here. And I don't need a lot because this is not a big piece of paper. And there we go. This will give me some flexibility. What I'm doing. By the way, I don't know if you can see that, but this probably has not been used for a while, and as a result it is separated, so what I got mostly is medium, but not a lot of pigment, so I'm going to try it over here instead. There we go. That looks more like a blue paint, as opposed to a semi-transparent glue. It's always a good idea when you're working with your paints. I mean, I use mine quite often, but not all the colors get the same TLC, so, alright. Use a bigger brush for my background. I'm going to put some yellow down. Like I said, yellow is going to be kind of the foundation, but I may obscure it with other colors. So let's get in here, get some yellow. I'm going to kind of just do an area. Let me tape my tape down here. And that's going to give me some foundational color there. Not a bad start. By the way, I'm going to get some of this orange in here. I'll just mix them together. I'm going to try to blend them a little bit. There we go. That looks good. Yeah. So it's not all just going to be separated colors. We're going to try to blend them best we can. I'm going to get a little bit of red in here, and again, the red's going to kind of be, put it up toward the top here on this side. But if I can get a little bit of blend with the yellow as well. And again, I can just pick up some of the yellow and just work it in. Right? We don't have to. That's one of the nice things I like about working with acrylics as well. It's not as easy to blend as it is, like, say, with watercolors, but I just think the colors are generally going to be more opaque. Well, that's a given, but a little bit richer to work with, and it just gives us some flexibility. And again, all I'm really doing right now is just kind of thinking, how can I lay some colors down in here and create a foundation, some different areas. Now I'm going to have some red there. I'm going to offset it, I think, down here with maybe this lighter blue color. So let's just come in here and pick this guy up, and again, I'm going to kind of fill in the white space best we can. And as we start getting some of that yellow picked up, you notice we're getting some green hues. I may go over that a little bit, but I don't have to blend everything. Sometimes things can actually cover other things. While I'm here, let's get some of this darker blue as well. What kind of color over here? It's going to be on this side. And let me blend that a little bit. Get the brush clean. Sometimes you work with the darker colors. It's hard to mix them without it getting kind of muddy. There we go. That's going to be a little bit better, I think, to blend those edges together right there. Okay. And again, we're not done, right? We're not done. That's kind of just, we're getting some colors down the foundation here. And what else do I want? I've got this darker green that I'm working with here. And maybe that darker green kind of comes in here like this, kind of an obscuring color to a certain degree. And I'm going to guess, we're working a little bit more red up here. I'm thinking as we break these down, I want to have kind of a balance of colors. Let me just kind of get this cleaned up a little bit. There we go. Like how that blue is blending a little bit better there. Not happy with the line here necessarily, but I'll come back and fix that. Let's get some red up in here in this section as well. And sometimes, you know, again, when you're working not fast enough, if things are drying, you can just simply go and dab a little water back in there, and you can get some blend going with the paint that already is on its way to being dried. It's not there yet. It's not there yet. Okay, and again, I'm gonna just kind of get my brush. There we go. I think I'm going to give this a few moments to dry, and then I'm going to come back and see if I'm going to put a few more layers of colors on it just to pop some of those colors. I've got the foundation where I want it. I just don't have the contrast of the colors yet. So let me give that a few minutes and we'll see what happens. Okay, now it's had a few minutes, maybe a little help from a hairdryer, but we've got some layers that are much drier than they were. I'm going to come in here with my smaller brush. I'm going to do a little bit more pickup. And I want to make sure that in this section here that this lighter blue is popping better than it is currently. Got mixed in a little bit, got a little muddy, but guess what? We're going to come in and make it the color we want it now that we have something that we can paint over. It's not going to affect it, not going to get in the way. We need a little bit more of that paint. There we go. And by the way, this looks good because also the kind of greener color underneath here is a bit mottled, but it's also peeking through and it gives it some good dimension. So, not unhappy with that at all. Let's do something similar. I'm going to try to actually create a blend here with this dark blue color. I'm going to pick that dark blue up and let's bring that into this section. I'm going to kind of get these little bits of the light blue in there too. Just again, create some contrast between the two. And that just looks a lot better already with the darker color coming through, which is really what my objective was. By the way, let me show you another trick when you're working with acrylics that, you know, may take care of some problems for you, and that is, what happens if you have paint on something and you don't like the way it's looking? What happens if you remove that paint? So I'm just taking a standard paper towel here. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just kind of wipe a section away. And maybe I don't like, you know, the blue's not drying fast enough. And you see how it changes the whole effect. Actually, I think I like that. And so by using some sort of texturing for the paper towel, removing some of the stuff that's going to dry faster, also going to get the look that you want. There's nothing to prevent me from coming back in here with markers, with crayons, with pens of any kind, and making changes and decorating things up. That's one of the beautiful things about working as a mixed media artist, is that you can mix it up. I'm going to give this a few more minutes to dry, and then let's see what happens when we pop them into a frame. Okay, they've had a chance to dry. Now let's get the tape off the back of them. There we go. Tape removal. Be careful, by the way, it could still be a little damp back here. And let's get these guys back in the order. There we are, like that. Now, again, the goal here is to create something that's kind of just going to be fun to put on a wall altogether. I'm going to use 3 of my white frames here. I think that's going to pop with the colors nicely. And so, let's get this one over here. Be our first one. Interesting. And again, you can see how it, with the edges obscured, it gets even a little bit more mysterious. And I guess we're going to do that like this. Yep, that'll work. And this one is going to go next to it like that. And then finally, the third one here. We'll go like that. And it really changes the whole look and feel, doesn't it? I mean, at this point now, they seem like 3 separate pieces of artwork that magically have a lot in common. They go together. So, bottom line is do what makes you happy. The objective of this lesson is really to talk about making small art. And we're working with 2x3. You can get frames. I've seen them as small as 1 inch by 1 inch. That's really small art. You can also take a larger frame, let's say a 4-inch frame, and put a tiny little thing in the middle. What you end up doing with it is entirely up to you. But like I said, when I think about art like this, I want to think about how can I create something I want to gift to a friend or myself that will really enhance the space that I'm living in, give me something to put on a wall, give me something to look at. Bathroom art, I think, is one of those underrated art forms. And when I talk about bathroom art, I'm usually talking about small art because most people's bathrooms aren't where you put the big piece. But a little piece of art that hangs next to your mirror or on a wall with a few other things can really, really dress a space up. And that's what we're talking about here. How can I create something that will be fun? Now, I'll mention one last thing with regard to working with something like this, is that if I'm working with, especially I'm working with matte acrylics, which is my go-to preference for painting, but not always for what I want to see when I'm done. So would I probably at some point with a piece like this go in with a Mod Podge gloss coating or some sort of varnish to make these things a little shinier? The answer is yeah, I would probably do that. So I'm seeing a little dull here. You may not see it on camera. It's not a big thing. But anyway, kind of a fun thing. You can space them a little bit, make it even more fun. You can even push them all together. Entirely up to you. Anyway, the objective for this lesson, let's go make some small art. Let's create something for that friend who lives in that really crazy small apartment. You love them, but you're not going to give them a big piece of art, but a little something that can fit into a nook and cranny could be just what we want. Anyway, that's all I have for you in this lesson. Thanks so much for popping by. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the holidays, and I'll talk to you next time.